Yo guys, Vision Gen here, back with more Battlefield 6 content. In today's video I wanted to share some more gameplay from the Battlefield 6 beta ahead of the upcoming game's launch on October 10th, using all of the sniper and of course the pistol, which I've had a blast playing with, using and just enjoying for the most part, and just wanted to share some cool clips that I've gained along the way and playing different maps and modes, as well as a little overview of the game so far with my thoughts on the game, the beta, the franchise and the direction of this iconic title and what it could potentially be. So on that note, let's just get right into things. So I guess as the first things first, as a general overview of the beta in itself, I think that the game so far has been so much fun, visually incredible and pure cinema. I have already made two Battlefield videos already. One was just an overview of the game in itself, sort of on the beta weekend number 1, and then a little overview of beta weekend number 2 using the assault rifles. Now for this one, I want to sort of go into detail a bit more on the sort of recon playstyle, sniping, using the DMRs, the pistol, and so on. So like I said, the maps and mode dynamic have been a great combination so far, successful in my opinion, with a variety of fast-paced, close quarters, ranged and elevated gunfights, and battles with the enemy teams. It's just been so fun, especially on Conquest, and modes like Rush and Breakthrough and so on. The gunplay in itself is really good. I did mention in my previous videos that I did take some time adjusting from COD to Battlefield again, but also spending some time in the firing range to try and maximize my experience on the beta overall, sorting out my sensitivity and all of that sort of stuff, because it can really help you in the long run with your overall experience. Like I said, I do play Call of Duty, if you guys weren't aware, on the channel. Like I said, so adjusting from that to Battlefield has been a little bit of an awkward learning curve, because I used to play Battlefield a lot back in the day. Like I said, if you haven't seen the previous videos, I basically made a Battlefield 6 overview video previously, which is linked in the description, which essentially is where I shared my initial thoughts of the game, the beta, clips and cool gameplay, using all kinds of weapons, playing different maps and modes, and a little bit about me as a gamer and a Battlefield long-time player, but just for anyone that is new, who maybe isn't aware, of course. And I do think it's relevant that you guys, any new viewers, are aware, because you want to know that you're actually watching a player who's both passionate about Battlefield and not just someone joining the bandwagon, but also somewhat who's good at the game, I guess, which I think is fair to say. Hopefully the gameplay speaks for itself and tells you that. But I guess back to this video, the gameplay, as I've mentioned throughout, is unbelievable, from the maps, the gunplay, the movement, and the vehicles. My personal favourite guns of the beta overall were probably the M433 AR and the M417A2 and M4A1 carbines. But I'll be honest, there's so many good weapons I've used and enjoyed. So overall, I'd say they're all pretty good, and you should definitely give them all a try, especially when the game comes out. We're going to see more weapons, of course, as well. Now, the main purpose of this video is to share gameplay, tips and tricks, and I guess loadouts maybe I've been using, and would suggest for both the sniper and pistol in the beta, to hopefully help with new players in Battlefield for when the game releases on October 10th, but also sharing some actual gameplay of me using these weapons to show you how good they can be and where they are a lot more effective, which will sort of depend on maps, modes, all that sort of stuff, and of course the attachments as well. So first things first, I'd say that the map massively impacts your sniping capabilities and your playstyle, of course, whether you need to play more fast-paced or have the ability to sort of camp back, take more longer range, sort of 150 plus meter snipes. Each map I played all had their own sort of sniping elements. Definitely could snipe on all of the 4 or 5 maps on the beta. I think the Iberian offensive was sort of open and had a lot of sort of trees and cover and natural greenery areas. The Liberation Peak was sort of had all the mountains and all sort of stuff to cover. Of course, the Cairo map was really good. It had sort of great areas along the streets. Depending on the mode, of course, you did have good cover for the most part. Like I said, the Iberian Peak was also good due to the sort of long range open lanes and rocks and sort of mountains for cover as well. But as I said, there was only real one sniper in the game, in the beta, and one pistol in the beta overall. So I was using, of course, the M2010 ESR, so the M2010 ESR sniper, and then the P18 sidearm for backup. I did sort of alter the sight and try adjusting sort of more closer range zooms just to try out for different experiences, but for the most part, it's all map dependent, and I guess mode as well. If you're playing Rush and you're playing Conquest, it's two different sort of game modes and styles, in sense that you're going to be a lot more fast paced, whereas if you're playing Conquest, you can pretty much just play however you wish. You can play isolated on your own in an area of which you choose and just sort of play to your own strengths and weaknesses. But I guess if it's a different game mode where it's a bit more fast paced and you have players sort of constantly engaging with you and seeing exactly where you are on a far frequent basis, then of course you may have to change it up, and also that may mean that you may want to change the attachments on your gun. But again, for the most part, it's all player dependent, and of course it is only the beta. In the actual game in itself, we'll go into a bit more detail in upcoming videos, which I like to share, because I think recon gameplay style and that sort of sniping element of the game is just fundamentally very important and significant in the overall sort of experience of playing Battlefield. It's a very fundamental aspect that I've always loved and cherished, and something that I definitely know that there are other Battlefield players out there, hardcore fans, that massively appreciate this aspect of the game, and there's definitely good maps and modes for this for the most part, which is, I guess, what I'm trying to get to. And in the gameplay in itself, you'll see that I'm just trying to different snipers, sort of sites and different areas of the map, and different sort of gunfights and different engagements, as you can see. So you can do it in all different sort of various different ways, just for you guys to be aware of it, especially if you are newer to the game, or if you're like a COD player that's coming over to Battlefield for the first time because COD's died out and you may want to try Battlefield out. Sniping is really fun. It's not the same as, of course, with Call of Duty, unless you're a sort of really slow player anyways, but for the most part, it is very different, and you have to take the time to adjust to the way that you sort of measure out how the guns drop, how you lead your shots on moving targets, all that sort of stuff, which is very different, of course, for newer players, especially if you're coming from Call of Duty. Now, as for the sort of the sniper in itself, it is a really good gun. For the most part, the attachments attachments, I wouldn't necessarily know what to recommend at this point, because there wasn't really a great deal to go into in terms of speeding up the ADS and the mobility. Of course, you can change the zoom, as I've alluded to all along, depending on the map and the mode, but for the most part, the sniper is pretty basic. It is a one shot to the sort of upper torso and head area, and then a two shot on most of the areas on the rest of the body. And then the pistol in itself was amazing. The ammo count was always a problem because I ended up coming across multiple people at times, but for the most part, the pistol was just a great sidearm. Nothing too fancy, not overpowered or anything like that by any means, as we've had in the past with different Battlefields, but for the most part, I'd say that was a great starting pistol, and I cannot wait to see what other sidearms we're going to get in the game's launch. Now, as well as that, I have tried sneaking in some DMR gameplay in here as well. I didn't particularly like them, and I don't really want to talk about them in too much depth, but for the most part, I would say I did try out everything that was possibly available to me in the beta, but I just didn't really get on with the DMRs. Maybe I was just playing them wrong, maybe I was playing for too fast pace, and in the gameplay, you can kind of see when I'm using the DMRs, I'm just sort of camping and just trying to sit somewhere where I can just use the actual gun in itself, because anytime I tried moving, I just feel like I got caught out, and you cannot get caught out with these weapons. That's what I found from my own experience, and like I said, I'd like to think I'm somewhat competent at playing these games, so if I can't do it, I'd like to think that the average player would definitely get caught out if they're trying to sprint around, unless maybe their lobbies just aren't as sweet. I don't know what it's like, but for me, the overall experience of using a DMR just was not fulfilling or satisfying by any means, but hopefully in the game when it comes out, they are better or they are improved. So like I said, just wanted to add the final part to make sure that when you're looking at your loadout builds for weapons, always consider your own playstyle rather than maybe any other person's build, or even, like I said in this video, showing stats on the setups or the snipers themselves. Don't be sort of looking into that stuff in too much detail. Make the gun suit your playstyle. Test the gun out and find how it suits to you. Test the gun in the firing range or whatever it may be, and find what it lacks for you and adjust as necessary to suit your playstyle. And then just quickly before I end the video, I did just want to add that please consider the map and mode that you're playing. I cannot emphasize this enough before you choose your guns and your class. I know that sounds really obvious for most people, but it's crazy how many people don't factor this in when they're using different guns. Longer range maps are obviously going to require more accurate guns, and for the example of sniping, you're going to get longer range gunfights and all of that sort of stuff. So just bear this in mind, and please, for any newer players, take this on board, because it will massively help you out and go a long way. I've seen some silly comments online about people just taking silly gunfights and just not really learning how to use the maps and the modes to your advantage when using different playstyles, sort of using different classes, using what you have in that class to your benefit and all that sort of stuff. And the firing range is amazing to help you with your shot, even if it's not a sniper. For anyone struggling with their aim or the movement and in shooting in general, try and go into the firing range and adjust your settings, your infantry aim sensitivity, your ADS sensitivity, aim down sight, as this will significantly help you. I'm definitely a faster player, so I play on a more higher sense, and then sort of make it easier for myself to sort of control recoil at further ranges by slowing down the ADS sensitivity, which always helps me. But just a little tip for anyone that may help. But in summary, I think the beta so far has been very enjoyable and an overall success. When the game comes out, there's going to be sort of more snipers that we hope, and we'll definitely try them out and sort of share gameplay going into the game in itself and what they're going to be looking like and how they play out in terms of different maps. And of course, there will be different maps and sort of more modes and all that sort of stuff. So we'll get back into this and resume the sniping gameplay in itself when the game launches, like I said, on October 10th. So just put that on your calendars. With that said, that's pretty much it for the video, guys. As always, if you enjoyed the video, do not forget to like and subscribe, as it massively helps me out. I'm a small channel and trying to grow, and my plan and my goal is to basically try and produce weekly or bi-weekly videos on Battlefield and some gameplay, sharing all the tips and tricks, guides, class loadouts, all that sort of stuff in the upcoming weeks. And when the game launches, I'm going to sort of go into a bit more detail and a bit more depth with further things like maybe the class layouts, how you use different classes, all that sort of stuff for any new beginners and especially players who are transitioning from COD to Battlefield. As I said, I'm a COD gamer, produce Call of Duty content on the channel for Zombies, Online and Warzone, and then I'm obviously a long-time player for Battlefield as well, who's very passionate and really enjoys this game. So I'm trying to sort of help any player who's in that same boat transition over, and hopefully we can get Battlefield back on the map again. With that said, I'm Visionist Gen. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.